On the morning of Saturday, December 14, 1799, George Washington awakened before dawn and told his wife Martha he was so sick that he could barely breathe. The indicated treatment was straightforward enough. By the time the sun had risen, Washington's overseer, George Rawlins, who was used to bleeding the people, had opened a vein in Washington's arm from which he drained approximately 12 ounces of his employer's blood. Over the course of the next 10 hours, 2 other doctors, Dr. James Craik and Dr. Elisha Dick, bled Washington 4 more times, extracting as much as 100 additional ounces. Removing at least 60% of their patient's total blood supply was only one of the curative tactics used by Washington's doctors. The former president's neck was coated with a paste composed of wax and beef fat, mixed with an irritant made from the secretions of dried beetles, one powerful enough to raise blisters, which were then opened and drained, apparently in the belief that it would remove the disease-causing poisons. He gargled a mixture of molasses, vinegar, and butter. His legs and feet were covered with a poultice made from wheat bran. He was given an enema, and, just to be on the safe side, his doctors gave Washington a dose of calomel, mercurous chloride, as a purgative. Unsurprisingly, none of these therapeutic efforts worked. By 10 p.m., America's first president knew he was dying. His last words were, "I am just going. Have me decently buried, and do not let my body be put into the vault less than 3 days after I am dead. Do you understand me?" "'Tis well." Like thousands of others in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the father of his country faced death with equanimity, but not the prospect of being buried alive. Hundreds of designs for so-called safety coffins, fitted with bells or other signaling devices, were patented from 1780 on. Less than 22 years later, another world historic figure had his final encounter with early 19th century medicine. Napoleon Bonaparte, exiled to Longwood House on the South Atlantic island of St. Helena after his defeat at Waterloo in 1815, experienced bouts of abdominal pain and vomiting for months, while 4 different physicians, each of whom wrote a memoir about their famous patient, treated him by administering hundreds of enemas and regularly dosing him with the powerful emetic known chemically as antimony potassium tartrate, not perhaps the best treatment for a patient already weak from vomiting. The one-time Emperor of France breathed his last on May 5, 1821. Historians with a morbid bent have produced thousands of pages of speculation on the diseases that killed 2 of the most famous men who ever lived. Today, the prevailing retrospective diagnosis for Washington is that he was dispatched by an infection of the epiglottis, probably caused by the tiny organism known as Haemophilus influenzae, type B, the pathogen that also causes bacterial meningitis. A popular minority opinion is that Washington died from PTA, or peritonsillar abscess, a strep infection that creates an abscess under the tonsil that swells with pus until it actually strangles the patient. The other name for PTA is quinsy or quincy, from the Greek word that means to strangle a dog. One thing that didn't kill Washington, despite its mention in just about every biography of the man, was his tour of Mount Vernon in cold, wet weather during the days leading up to his death, and his decision to dine with friends wearing still wet clothing on the night of December 13. Infectious diseases aren't caused by catching a chill. The debate about the cause of Napoleon Bonaparte's death is, likewise, fueled by enough raw material that it seems likely to go on forever. The initial autopsy concluded that l'Empereur had died of stomach cancer, the same disease that killed Napoleon's father in 1785. Hepatitis has its advocates, as does the parasitic disease known as schistosomiasis, which Napoleon is thought to have acquired during his Egyptian campaign of 1798. Neither is as popular among amateur historians as arsenic poisoning, either as a murder weapon or an accident caused by exposure to wallpaper more or less saturated in the stuff. An equally honest answer for both former generals is that they died of iatrogenesis, bad medicine, or more accurately, heroic medicine.